As I was born from the semen of Vyasadeva, I want you to have children through the semen of some great rishi. Kunti was ever agreeable to the desires of her husband and spoke to him in the following words. When I was a young girl, I used to wait upon guests and satisfy them to their heart's content. One day a Brahmana named Durvasamuni came to my father's palace. By my services, the Brahmana was satisfied and wanted to give me a benediction. He bestowed upon me a mantra by which I could call any demigod from the upper planetary systems. He said to me, "With this mantra you may call any one of the demigods, and they will abide by your will. Any demigod who you call will beget children by you. If you command me, I shall call for any demigod you wish. O foremost of all truthful men, tell me which of the demigods I should summon." Hearing the words of Kunti with great joy, Pandu replied, "O most fortunate Kunti, summon the demigod of justice Yamaraj. He is most pious and a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. Indeed, he is one of the Mahajans and will not pollute our dynasty with sin." Kunti agreed with the order of Pandu and prepared to call the demigod Yamaraj. Kunti repeated the incantation that Durvasamuni had taught her, and she called for the demigod Yamaraj. Through him she begot a child that was equal to the great Yamaraj himself. When the child was born, there was a celestial voice from the sky that announced, "This child shall be the best among men, the foremost of those that are virtuous. He will be known as an intimate associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Endowed with great prowess and truthful in speech, he will become the ruler of this earth. This first son of Pandu will be known as Yudhishthira, and he will be a famous king throughout the three worlds." Pandu was overjoyed by the birth of such a pious son, and he told Kunti, "The wise have declared that a Kshatriya must be endowed with physical strength, otherwise he is no Kshatriya. Therefore call for Vayu, the mighty demigod of the wind." Kunti then called for the demigod Vayu, and coming before her he said, "O Kunti, please tell me why you have called me." Smiling with modesty, she said, "Please give me, O best of the celestials, a child endowed with great strength and large limbs, and capable of humiliating the pride of everyone." Vayu then begot a child by her that was the foremost of all who were endowed with strength. When the child was born, a voice from the sky said, "This child shall be known as Bhima, and by his strength he will conquer over all persons." On this same day that Bhima took birth, Duryodhana was also born. One day shortly after Bhima's birth, Kunti was holding him in her lap, the child having fallen asleep. Suddenly a lion roared, and Kunti rose unconscious that the child was on her lap. The child fell down the side of a mountain and crushed the stone upon which he fell into powder. The child was not hurt in the least, and Pandu was amazed at the bodily strength of his son. After the birth of Bhima, Pandu desired more children. He told Kunti to practice austerities for 1 year, and he himself stood on one leg from morning till evening every day in rapt meditation, hoping to satisfy Indra, the king of heaven. Indra, being pleased with Pandu, came to him and said, "I will give you, O king, a child who will be celebrated all over the three worlds. He shall destroy the impious and be the joy of those who are pious. He will be a great devotee of Lord Vishnu." Pandu then called for Kunti and told her to call the demigod Indra to beget another child. Kunti, following the order of her husband, called for Indra, and through her he begot a child that was to be the intimate associate of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Upon the birth of this child there was a celestial sound from the heavens announcing, "This child shall be known as Arjuna. He will be equal in bowmanship to the great Kartavirya, and in prowess he will resemble Lord Shiva. Invincible in battle, he will spread the glories of the Kuru dynasty far and wide. Acquiring all kinds of celestial weapons, he will win back the fortunes of your dynasty." After these prophetic words were heard, kettle drums rolled, and the demigods and the rishis showered the earth with flowers. The celebrated Pandu was overjoyed on the occasion and approached his wife with a desire to beget more children. However, before Pandu could speak, Kunti said, "The wise do not sanction a fourth child even in a season of distress. The woman who has intercourse with 4 different men is called a prostitute, and with the 5th she is called a harlot. Therefore, O great king, as you are learned in the scriptures, please do not ask me to again beget children." After the birth of Kunti's first 3 sons, and also the birth of 100 sons to Gandhari, Madri, the daughter of the king of Madras, approached Pandu and spoke the following words. "O great king, I have no complaint if you are not in favor of me. O sinless one, I also have no complaint that although I am senior to Kunti, I am inferior to her in station. I do not grieve when I hear that Gandhari has obtained 100 sons. This, however, is my great grief, that while Kunti and I are equal, I am childless. If Kunti could teach me to have children in the same way that she has begotten children, then I would be satisfied. Please ask her on my account." Pandu then approached Kunti and in sweet words asked her to teach the mantra to Madri so that she could also have children. Kunti readily agreed and told Madri, "Think of some demigod that you are favorable towards, and certainly you shall beget children by him." Madri thought of the twin Ashvin Kumar demigods, and within a matter of seconds they appeared before her. They gave her 2 children named Nakula and Sahadev, who were unrivaled on earth for personal beauty. As soon as they were born, a voice from the heavens spoke, "In energy and beauty, these 2 children shall excel even the twin Ashvins themselves." Thus 5 children were born to Pandu, and the great king felt fully satisfied to see the good quality of his children. They were each born at a year's interval apart, and as they grew, they became the favorite of the great sages in that region. Gandhari also gave birth to children. She received a benediction from Vyasadeva that she could have 100 sons. Sometime after Gandhari conceived, and she bore the pregnancy for 2 years without delivering. When she heard that Kunti had given birth to a child whose splendor was like the morning sun, she became angry and violently hit her womb. She then gave birth to a ball of flesh that was like a hard iron ball. When she was about to throw the ball of flesh away, Vyasadeva appeared on the scene. Without disguising her feelings, she said, "When I heard that Kunti gave birth to a child that was effulgent like the sun, I struck my womb. You have promised me 100 sons, but here is a ball of flesh." Vyasadeva replied, "O daughter of Subal, my words can never be futile. I have never spoken an untruth, even in jest. Let 100 pots full of clarified butter be brought instantly. In the meantime, sprinkle cool water over this ball of flesh." As the ball of flesh was being sprinkled with water, it separated into 100 pieces, each about the size of a thumb. They were then placed in the pots of ghee and covered. Vyasadeva told Gandhari that a child would be born from each of the pots. He then left for the Himalayan mountains. The first child born from those pots was Duryodhana. As soon as he was born, he began to bray like an ass. And hearing that sound, the asses, vultures, jackals, and crows uttered their respective cries. Violent winds began to blow, and there were fires in various directions. Duryodhana was born on the same day that Bhima was born. After the birth of Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra in great fear called for Bhishma, Vidura, and all the senior Brahmins and members of the Kuru house. He then spoke to them, "The oldest of the princes is Yudhishthira, and he shall become king. By virtue of his birth he has gained the kingdom. But what about this son born to me? Will he become king?" As soon as these words were spoken, jackals, crows, and asses began to howl frightfully. Vidura then spoke to the king. "O king, when these frightful omens are noticeable at birth, it is evident that this child shall be the exterminator of your race. Your prosperity is dependent on abandoning him, and if you decide otherwise, it will prove to be the destruction of the dynasty. You already have 99 other sons born to you, so let this one go. O king, do good to the whole world by casting away this child." When Vidura had thus spoken, all the Brahmanas agreed, but Dhritarashtra had not the heart to destroy this child. Within a month, all the 100 pots of ghee had produced a child, and in addition to these 100, Vyasadeva produced another pot in which a female child was born named Dushila. Also there was a Vaishya woman who used to serve Dhritarashtra very faithfully. By her the king begot a child named Yuyutsu, who was endowed with great intelligence. Thus 101 sons were born to Dhritarashtra, as well as 1 daughter. In order of birth they were Duryodhana, Yuyutsu, Dushashan, Dushaha, Dushila, etc. All the 101 children became heroes and great chariot fighters. One day after the birth of his 5 sons, Pandu was wandering about in the woods with his wife Madri. It was the springtime, and the flowers were in bloom, casting their scent in all directions. The birds like the parrot, the cuckoo, the cranes, and the peacocks were singing sweetly, and the bees were making their humming noises. Bewildered by the atmosphere, King Pandu became attracted to his wife, and forgetting the curse of the rishi, forcibly embraced her. Madri tried to resist the advances of her husband, but it was of no use. Impelled by fate, the great king, overwhelmed by passion, ended his life trying to enjoy the embraces of his wife. Embracing the dead body of her husband and weeping aloud, Madri called out for Kunti. Kunti heard the call and came to where Madri lay with Pandu. Seeing the dead body of Pandu, Kunti fell to the ground crying. She was overwhelmed with grief and chastised Madri again and again for not resisting the king. Madri told her all that had happened and how she had tried to stop the advances of Pandu. Kunti then said, "I am the oldest of his wedded wives, and therefore the religious right of Sati belongs to me. You must now take care of the children and see that they are properly raised." To this Madri replied, "Kunti, it is I who should enter the fire with our Lord. He had approached me for embraces, and his desires being unfulfilled, he has ascended to the heavens. Therefore I shall accompany him to the abode of Yamaraj to fulfill his desires. If I survive, I shall certainly not be able to raise your children as if they were my own. But you, O Kunti, shall be able to raise my sons as if they were your own. Therefore let my body be burnt with his." Kunti reluctantly agreed to the proposal. While lamenting greatly, they built a funeral pyre and laid the dead body of Pandu upon it. As the body burned, Madri entered the flames and attained the same destination as her husband. Thus ends the 5th chapter of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled "The Pandavas Are Born." Chapter 6 of the Adi Parva. The Pandavas enter Hastinapur. After the death of King Pandu, the sages in that region gathered together and consulted amongst one another about the future of Kunti and her sons. The rishis decided that the Pandavas, along with their mother, should go to Hastinapur and take shelter of grandfather Bhishma and the Kuru elders. Accompanied by the sages and the charanas, Kunti and her children appeared outside the city gates of Hastinapur. Upon hearing that Kunti was at the gate of the city along with her 5 children, the members of the Kuru court, headed by Bhishma, Dhritarashtra, and Vidura, went to greet them. The citizens of Hastinapur also came there to see the sons of Pandu. Everyone was struck with wonder to behold the godlike sages accompanied by the celestial charanas. The sages then began to speak to the Kuru elders. "All of you know that the king of this world, Pandu, has been living in the forest as an ascetic due to the curse of a Muni. The curse has now taken its toll, and the great king has ascended to the heavenly planets. Here are his 5 children. The oldest is Yudhishthira, conceived by the controller of religion himself. He is the future king. The second son is Bhima, conceived by the demigod Vayu, and is the possessor of unlimited strength. The third son is Arjuna, conceived by the great Indra himself, and will humble the pride of all archers on earth. The last 2 children are Nakula and Sahadev, begotten by the Ashvini Kumar demigods by Madri. The birth, growth, and development of these sons of Pandu will give pleasure to all. King Pandu departed 17 days ago along with his wife Madri. The last funeral rites need to be performed with great honor befitting a king of this earth." After speaking these words, the sages along with the charanas disappeared from sight. Dhritarashtra then ordered Vidura in the following words: "O brother, let us perform the last rites for this king of kings, and also arrange for charity to be given freely to whoever is in need." The remnants of the body of Pandu and Madri were then taken in state to the banks of the Ganges, where the last funeral rites were performed. The ashes were then thrown into the Ganges. All the citizens, young and old, wept bitterly over the loss of their king, and thus passed 12 days in mourning. One day after the Shraddha ceremony had been performed, Vyasadeva approached Satyavati and said, "Mother, the days of happiness in the Kuru house have now set like the sun, and the days of darkness have now entered. The empire of the Kauravas will no longer endure. You should not be a witness to the annihilation of your race. Therefore enter the forest and fix your mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, the protector of all." Following the advice of her son, Satyavati along with Ambika and Ambalika entered the forest. When their meditation was complete, they entered the spiritual world. After the Pandavas were settled in the palace of their father, they began to grow up in the opulence that was due to great princes. Whenever Bhima was engaged in play with the sons of Dhritarashtra, his strength became apparent. Bhima proved superior in speed, striking objects aimed at, consuming food, and scattering dust. The son of the wind god pulled the sons of Dhritarashtra by the hair and made them fight with one another, laughing all the while. Bhima would seize them by the hair and, throwing them down, drag them along the ground. In his playful mood, Bhima would accidentally break their knees, their heads, and their shoulders. Sometimes, while swimming together, the second son of Pandu used to hold 10 of them at a time under the water until they were almost dead. When the sons of Dhritarashtra would climb in a tree to gather fruits, Bhima used to shake the tree until the fruits as well as the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra fell to the ground. Bhima would play with them in childishness, but he would never hurt them out of envy. When it was obvious that Bhima could challenge all 100 sons of Dhritarashtra single-handedly, Duryodhana began to make deceitful plans against him. He thought, "There is no person who can compare with Bhima in strength. He does not think twice of challenging my 100 brothers to combat. I will have to destroy him and confine Yudhishthira and Arjuna to imprisonment. Then I shall be the sole heir to the throne without hindrance." This mentality of Duryodhana is a typical mentality of a demoniac person. Lord Krishna speaks to Arjuna in the 16th chapter about this state of mind. Lord Krishna says, "The demoniac person thinks, 'So much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemy will also be killed. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices, I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice.' In this way such persons are deluded by ignorance." Because Duryodhana was puffed up and arrogant, he had no appreciation for the spiritual qualities of the Vaishnavas. He was an offender against the Vaishnavas, and was thus meant for destruction. Possessed with the mentality described above, the wicked Duryodhana had a palace built on the banks of the Ganges that was just for sporting in the water. His plan was to invite the Pandavas to this house and feed Bhima a poison cake. When Bhima was unconscious from the poison, Duryodhana and his brothers would throw him in the Ganges. After the palace was completed, Duryodhana invited the Pandavas. "Let us go to the bank of the Ganges and sport in the water. We shall have a picnic and enjoy the scenery." Not understanding the evil intentions of Duryodhana, the Pandavas accompanied the sons of Dhritarashtra to the banks of the Ganges and entered the newly constructed palace by the water. They all sat down to a feast before swimming. Duryodhana brought Bhima a cake that was filled with enough poison to kill 100 men. That wicked youth, who spoke sweetly but whose heart was like a razor, continued to feed Bhima different kinds of food that were filled with poison. After the feast, the boys began playing in the water. Bhima became tired and fatigued from the poison, and rising from the water laid himself down on the ground. Seeing this, Duryodhana and some of his brothers bound him with ropes and threw him into the Ganges. He sank down to the bottom of that river, where the Naga kingdom is situated. The Nagas, or snakes, began to bite him by the thousands, and the poison from the cake was neutralized by the venom of the serpents. On regaining consciousness, the son of Kunti broke his bonds and began to kill the snakes that were biting him. The rest of the snakes fled and went to their leader Vashuki and told him what had happened. Vashuki happened to be related to Bhima through the wind god Vayu, and upon hearing of his presence, he came to him and embraced him. They talked for some time about what had happened, and Vashuki, wanting to make Bhima very powerful to protect him from future attacks, offered the son of Vayu 8 bowls of nectar in which there was the strength of 10,000 elephants. Bhima drank 1 bowl in one breath, and after drinking all 8 bowls, he lay down on a bed prepared by the serpents. Meanwhile, the Pandavas and the Kauravas set out for Hastinapur, thinking that Bhima had left early for the city. The wicked Duryodhana was now glad that Bhima was dead, and he appeared very happy on the way back to Hastinapur. Yudhishthira, who was unacquainted with vice and wickedness, thought nothing of the matter. Upon entering the chambers of his mother, he inquired from her, "O mother, has Bhima come here early? I cannot find him anywhere. While swimming in the Ganges, he became tired and slept on the shore. After we finished with our playing, we could not find him. Has he come here early because of the fatigue of swimming?" Kunti became excited when she heard that Bhima was missing, and she said in alarm, "My dear Yudhishthira, I have not seen Bhima. He has not come here. Return in haste with your brothers and try to find him." After dismissing her son, she called for Vidura and inquired from him, "O illustrious Vidura, Bhima is missing. Today the boys went swimming in the Ganges, and they returned without him. I know that Duryodhana does not like him. This first son of Dhritarashtra is crooked, malicious, low-minded, and cruel. His only desire is to obtain the throne. I am afraid he might have killed Bhima, and this is saddening my heart." Vidura replied, "Blessed lady, do not grieve. Protect your other sons with care. If Duryodhana is accused, he might slay the other sons. The great sage Vyasadeva has said that all your sons will be long-lived. Therefore Bhima will surely return and gladden your heart." Vidura then returned to his abode, and Kunti, unable to shake her anxiety, stayed in her quarters. Meanwhile Bhimasena awoke from his deep sleep after 8 days. The Nagas glorified him and tended to his needs. They spoke to him. "O greatly powerful Bhima, the nectar that you have drunk will give you the strength of 10,000 elephants. No one will be able to defeat you in battle. Please return home, for your mother is in deep anxiety because of you." The Nagas then dressed him in fine silks and ornaments and returned him to the palace by the river. Bhima ran with great speed to the city of Hastinapur. He entered the palace of his mother and bowed at her feet and at the feet of his elder brother. Kunti took her son on her lap and embraced him, and affectionate tears glided down her face. The other brothers gathered around and embraced him warmly. Bhima then began to relate everything that had happened. He explained how Duryodhana had tried to poison him, and how the wicked son of Dhritarashtra and his brothers had tied him up and threw him in the Ganges. He also explained how the Nagas had bit him, causing the poison in the cake to be counteracted. He then explained how he had been given 8 bowls of elixir of immortality, and how his strength had increased thousands of times. Yudhishthira then said, "Do not speak of this to anyone. From this day on we should protect one another with care. Under the guidance of Vidura, no harm can come to us." This was the beginning of many offenses committed against the Pandavas by the wicked Duryodhana. The Pandavas, along with their mother Kunti, were completely helpless. Therefore they had to take close shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. In Kunti's prayers to Lord Krishna she states, "Vishanmahagne purushadarshanad asatsabhaya vanavasa kristradha mridhe mridhe nakamaharatrastrato dronyastratas chasma hare birakshita." Kunti said, "My dear Krishna, your lordship has protected us from a poison cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from the vicious assembly, from sufferings during our exile in the forest, and from the battle where great generals fought. And now you have saved us from the weapon of Ashvatthama." The Pandavas and their mother were destined for political intrigues, but because they took shelter of Lord Krishna, they were protected in all circumstances. We can also follow in the footsteps of Queen Kunti and her sons by taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord whenever difficulties arise. Thus ends the 6th chapter of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled "The Pandavas Enter Hastinapur."